Welcome to Arts Express. This is Prairie Miller, and on the show,
buried in the ground. Mother Earth will swallow you, lay your body down. Find the cost of freedom, buried in the ground. Mother Earth will swallow you, lay your body down.
and that's historically one of the most powerful anti-war protest songs performed by the original Crosby, Stills, and Nash during the Vietnam War. And Graham Nash is our guest on the show this week, revisiting with us that classical musical movement, its impact on a generation that continues to resonate today, as we've experienced endless wars since then, with subsequent U.S. generations born into those wars and never knowing anything but in their lifetimes. But first, we'll hear in a much more personal time of his life, Our House, the story behind the song, when Graham Nash and music icon Joni Mitchell fell in love and lived together back then, and the song they wrote together. And Our House, the story behind the song, is a production of Dutch television. Following the documentary in our Arts Express screening room, Graham Nash recreates, during our conversation, a multitude of magical moments of creation throughout the years and that vividly realized renaissance in music. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young were part of, quote, "It was an incredible time. This sound that we had created when we made our three voices one was something that none of us had heard before, and I realized at that moment that my life had changed completely, and I would follow that sound." First, the story behind the song, then Graham Nash taking time out in the middle of composing a new piece to talk to Arts Express.
I met Joni in Ottawa, in Canada, in, I think, somewhere around early 1967. And the Hollies were playing a show in Canada. And after the show, the Hollies were being thrown a party by our production people and stuff. And my manager's talking in my ear, and I'm looking at this beautiful blonde across the way. And he keeps talking in my ear, and I go, hey, I'm trying to concentrate on this woman, please. And he said, well, if you'd be quiet for a second, I'm about to tell you that this is Joni Mitchell and she wants to meet you. And I said, oh, well, in that case. And that started a long relationship with John. We lived together in Laurel Canyon for a couple of years there. My memories of Laurel Canyon are beautiful. Lots of sunshine, lots of freedom, lots of new music to make. Establishing my relationship with David and Stephen, and with Joan, of course, and then later with Neil. Lots of drugs, lots of marijuana, lots of beautiful women with very few clothes. You know, it was an amazing time. I was in love. And I was with a brilliant, beautiful woman. I'd taken Joni to breakfast at a delicatessen on Ventura Boulevard in Los Angeles, in the Valley. And we'd finished breakfast and we were walking back to Joan's car. There was this small antiques store on Ventura Boulevard. And we were looking in the window and Joni saw a vase that she liked to hold flowers. I don't know, about 10 inches tall, clear, with hand-painted flowers around the edge. And it was reasonably cheap. It was, you know, it wasn't an expensive item, so she bought it. And this particular morning in Los Angeles was very grey, kind of miserable, kind of cold and damp. And we drove back to Joni's house on Laurel Canyon and went through the front door, of course, and I said, "Hey, Joan, it's really cold today. Why don't I light a fire and you put some flowers in that vase that you just bought?" Want to hear how it turned out? I'll light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today. And that was the first verse. And so Joni went out in the garden to put some flowers in the vase. And that meant two things. One, that she was not at her piano. And the second one was that I was. She was out there collecting flowers and I was writing my feelings down.
Staring at the fire for hours and hours while I listen to you play your love songs all night long. Only for me. Come to me now and rest your head for just 5 minutes. Everything is done.
Joni and I broke up. I have a feeling that in our relationship, we all make decisions based on our past. What happened to us as children, what happened to us as growing up. And I think that Joni thought that I wanted her to give up being Joni Mitchell and just be in the kitchen. Which is the furthest thing from my mind ever. Heartbreaking. But at least I have a heart to break.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house.
With 2 cats in the yard, life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And I'll light the fire while you place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
Hello and welcome.
You got it. I've been expecting your call.
Oh, great.
No problem.
What about your upcoming national tour, what you'll be performing, and what about your distinguished life and music that you'll be talking about?
I've written a lot of songs in my life. I'm gonna take it from the Hollies music, through Crosby Nash music, through Crosby Stills and Nash music, from Crosby Stills Nash and Young music, and from my music solo. So I have a lot of choices to be able to do. So a lot of times the set list is a little different every single night. And I want my audience to realize two things. One, that I'm so pleased and grateful that they're there. And two, I want them to know that I want to be there. I'm not doing it, for any other reason than to make the best music I can. And I'm going to sing the songs like, Military Madness and Chicago, We Can Change the World, and Immigration Man. And I'm going to sing them with the same joy and the same passion I had when I wrote them.
And please talk about what listeners can anticipate on your latest album, Graham Nash Live, and your classics revisited.
I think that first of all, it was my wife, Amy, who persuaded me to do this. I'd always loved those albums. A lot of the songs I'd never performed live before. And it was interesting to me to be able to do that. And then Amy said, you know what? I want to see that show. You've got to do that. I'm a fan of your music. I want to see that show. And so the persuasion of my wife, Amy, is when I did it. But I worked with a band that I'd never worked with before. We only rehearsed for a week, and we only did 4 shows. I chose the best performances of each show and realized that, that this could be a really fine live album. And that's what I did, and there's the album. And I'm loving the album. And somebody paid me a compliment, and I don't normally talk that way, but here's what happened. There's a mastering engineer in this music industry called Bob Ludwig, and he's famous for great stuff. And even though I've worked with him for 50 years, we have never interacted personally. I get a text from Bob, and he says, you know something? I worked on the original Songs for Beginners, and I worked mastering the original Wild Tales. And I have to tell you, you are singing better than ever. And coming from Bob Ludwig, that was fabulous to me.
Yeah. Now, last year, you also came out with an amazing tribute for the 100th anniversary commemoration of the Tulsa Massacre, Dirty Little Secret, which you co-wrote and created the music for. Please talk about the inspiration for that.
I was making a record that was being produced by Russ Kunkel and his son Nathaniel. Russ Kunkel, of course, is one of the greatest drummers in the world. Played with everyone from James Taylor to us to Bob Dylan, etc. I mean, incredible. Anyway, I was in the middle of making that record, and I watched. I was a fan of 60 Minutes, and I saw a 5-minute piece on the Tulsa riot, and it was such an incredible story for me that I plunged into figuring out exactly what had happened. And Russ and I wrote Dirty Little Secret 20 years ago. And today, most people know about it. A lot of people are saying that reparations should be made to the survivors and the people. I mean, there were over 300 people killed. Yeah. And buried in mass graves. They even had aeroplanes bombing the people out in Greenwood. Yeah. Greenwood, sounds like a remote place, but it's like, you know how Brooklyn is a part of New York? Kind of? Yeah. Well, Greenwood was that close to Tulsa. Yeah. And so it wasn't this remote place. It was actually part of Tulsa. And it was the Black Wall Street. It was incredibly successful. There were churches. There were community houses. There were theaters. There was stock exchange. It was a beautiful, vibrant place. And white people completely destroyed it. And so that's why I wrote Dirty Little Secret with Russ.
And you also revisit in your stunning short documentary, Our House, the story behind the song, your very personal creation of that work. What led you down that memory lane musical excursion?
I think that everybody has their house. I think everybody, can relate to that song because it's something that happened between Joni and I. I had taken Joni to breakfast on Ventura Boulevard in Los Angeles, Arts Deli, right? We had a beautiful breakfast. It was the tail end of winter. It was a day. It was rainy and it was cold and foggy and totally miserable. As we left the restaurant, after having breakfast, we were walking back to Joni's car and past an antique store. And we're looking in the window, and Joni saw this beautiful vase that she wanted to buy, about 10 inches high, had some beautiful hand-painted flowers around one edge, very cheap, and she bought it. And so we get to the car, and we drive down to Joni's house in Laurel Canyon. And I go through the front door, and as I said, it was a miserable day. So I said to Joan, "Hey, Joan, why don't I light a fire and you put some flowers in that vase that you bought today?" Well, I'm a writer, and there was no way I was going to let that moment disappear.
Yeah.
And I sat down at the piano when Joni wasn't at the piano because she was in the garden trying to find some weeds and some old flowers to put in this vase. And I wrote Our House within an hour.
Wow.
And what would you say is the legacy of that memorable renaissance in music back then that you were so much a part of, creatively, personally, and politically for you?
I wanted to express my opinion. I live in I'm English, of course, so I'm not from here. But it was an incredible time in the late 60s in Laurel Canyon. It was full of, beautiful women and lots of music and friends going to each other's house and playing their latest thing. I mean, me and David and Stephen would go with one acoustic guitar and sing Sweet Beauty Blue Eyes in front of people and knock them on their ass because we were damn good. Obviously, the Hollies and the Springfield and the Byrds were decent harmony bands, but this sound that we had created when we made our three voices into one was something that neither one of us had heard before. And I realized at that moment that my life had changed completely. I would have to go back to England and leave the Hollies and leave my equipment and just come to America and follow that sound because I'm a musician.
Yeah.
And when I heard that sound, my life changed.
And what was the best thing and the worst thing about being part of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young?
The best thing was the music. The worst thing was cocaine.
And what would you like those classics to say to youth audiences today and to up-and-coming young aspiring musicians?
That there's a lot of stuff happening in the world that needs to be spoken about. And that we had the courage to talk about stuff that other people would not talk about. I didn't hear many songs about Nixon. I did, then we did Ohio, of course. Yes, if there's any advice to any upcoming musicians, follow your heart and keep aware of what's going on around you 360 degrees.
And what are your feelings about your song Chicago, what it meant to you back then, and what it means to you today?
I've always loved the underdog. I've always rooted for the team that was supposed to lose and didn't. And we were able to express what we were feeling. We live in America. We can speak our minds here. I'm not so sure that if CSNY were doing it in any other country that we would have been able to get away with that stuff. But here in America, you can speak your mind, and that's what we did. And that's what my advice is to any other upcoming musicians. Follow your heart and keep aware of what's going on and express your opinion about what's going on in your life right now.
And are you contemplating anything next or in the future?
I am leaving this interview and going to the studio to finish the last track. I'm finishing the last track on an album that I'm doing with Alan Clark. Alan Clark and I formed the Hollies in December of 1962. And it's taken us all this time, all these years, decades later, to be able to sing together. And so it's an Alan Clark solo record, but I'm singing on every single track with him. I've also got a studio record ready to go, too.
And any last word on your new album and your tour, and where can people find more information about them?
Well, GrahamNash.com. People can find, online is so great right now. I'm loving social media, but unfortunately, I think two things. One, I think the new social media gives everybody in the world a voice, and unfortunately, it gives everybody a voice, including all the crazy, stupid conspiracy theorists, have the same power as all the brilliant people out there. So I think my audience are going to understand that I want to be there, and they're going to understand that music goes on, and I don't believe that it will ever stop.
And what do you feel you contributed uniquely to Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young as the British musician with the group?
I think my ability to sing high. Not only high, but in terms of my voice. I'm usually the top harmony singer. And that's what I bring in. I realized when I first came to America that I could write a tune that you probably couldn't forget if you heard it a couple of times. But the lyrics left a lot to be desired. There were a lot of moon tunes in the back of the car kind of lyrics, And I realized when I saw what David was doing, and when I saw what Stephen was doing, and when I saw what Joni was doing, and when I saw what Neil was doing, I began to realize that if I put better words to my melodies, that I would have better songs. And that's what I did. And that's what I concentrated on. And that's one of the things that I bring to Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young.
And when Graham Nash looks in the mirror, what does he see?
An 80-year-old man that doesn't feel like he's 80 years old.
And please tell us what you've been up to with your photography.
Yeah. If all the listeners on Arts Express want to know, I put out a new book of photographs of all my friends in compromising positions. Not really, but yeah, it's a beautiful book. I'm very proud of it. It's called A Life in Focus. So everybody that's listening to Arts Express, check it out.
Okay, thank you so much, Graham Nash, for calling into our show.
You're very welcome, Will. Bye-bye.
Carry on, love is coming, love is coming to us all. What was it made you run? Trying
And more information about Nash's new album, his artwork, and upcoming national music tour beginning in July again can be found at grahamnash.com. And now on Arts Express, in commemoration of Juneteenth this week, marking the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans in this country, a poem by Kwame Dawes, part of a presentation of the Poetry Coalition, a gathering of voices for One Poem protest readings in support of Black Lives Matter.
My name is Kwame Dawes. This is a poem called Land Ho, and it's written in response to the wonderful work of Tom Feelings. I cannot speak the languages spoken in that vessel, cannot read the beads promising salvation. I know this only, that when the green of land appeared like light after the horror of this crossing, we straightened our backs and faced the simplicity of new days with flame. I know I have the blood of survivors coursing through my veins. I know the lament of our loss must warm us again and again down in the belly of the whale. And here in the belly of the whale, where we are still searching for homes, we sing laments so old, so true, then straighten our backs again. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwame Dawes.
But then I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong, and I grew strong, and I learned how to get along, and so you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you here with that sad look upon your face. I should have changed that stupid lock. I should have made you leave your key. If I'd have known for just 1 second you'd be back to bother me. Oh, now go, walk out the door. Just turn around now, 'cause you're not welcome anymore.
Hi, this is Gloria Gaynor giving a shout out to all the listeners of this wonderful program, to the wonderful listeners of Arts Express.
And now it's time for, well, some breaking news.
Hello, Americans. This is Natasha from Russia, and we want to thank you for all your sanctions, for taking away from our country Coca-Cola, KFC, McDonald's, and all that. We understand that you take care of our healthiness. Healthy. And that's why we'll be stronger and more beautiful and without fat. So, we take care of you too. And that's why we cut our gas. So, you have to walk by foot instead of using your cars. Don't thank you. Don't say thank you. Friendship. I am so sorry. I have to go to feed my bear and drink vodka and play balalaika right now. See you later. From Russia with love.
Okay. And now on Arts Express, Concert in the Barn from Richfield, Connecticut, 7-time Grammy Award winner and artist in residence at New York City's Cathedral of St. John the Divine for 40 years, Paul Winter, to discuss his new album, Concert in the Barn, and how it came to be composed, live-streamed from his New England barn in this age of COVID. Winter shares memories and summer solstice music created, quote, when the birds begin to sing at sunrise this time of year, an experience of the gradual crescendo of delight, and the most powerful theater you can imagine.
Hi, this is Jack Shalom. For decade after decade, Paul Winter has been making beautiful music, blending the sounds of the earth and nature with his signature soprano saxophone. In an extraordinary life filled with adventure and achievement, he has won 7 Grammy Awards, played for the Kennedys at the White House, and he has been artist in residence at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City for 40 years. And that's just scratching the surface. I'm happy to welcome the wonderful musical artist, Paul Winter. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Jack. Thank you.
Paul, where are you calling in from?
From my barn here in Litchfield, Connecticut.
And how have you been coping, making and sharing music in the age of COVID?
The great fortune I've had is to live here in the boondocks. I got this barn 45 years ago as a music studio, and it's been a wonderful getaway for me and my family all this time. And I've pretty much been here most of these last 2 years, and I'm able to work in the studio here and also produce our concerts in the hayloft upstairs.
Tell us about your new album, Paul.
This came about because of COVID last June. For our summer solstice, which we couldn't do in the cathedral, we decided to try live streaming it from the barn here, and it worked beautifully. I had to find alternative players in some cases for the consort because our regular guys who usually fly in from all over the country weren't traveling much. So I found some wonderful people in the New England neighborhood here, and it's probably the most unique consort album we've done because it includes several vocals as well as a diversity of instrumental pieces.
You played with excellent musicians on this album, old friends and new. Tell us about them.
Well, Eugene Friesen, our cellist for 42 years, he lives in Vermont, so he could come. And also Teresa Thomason, our beloved vocalist who's been doing our solstice events for over 25 years, lives down the valley here. So the 2 new players are Jeff Baratko, who is an extraordinary young musician who we've just encountered him in the last couple of years. He's a bassoonist. It was amazing to discover how pertinent his playing was to our music. But moreover, when I asked him how things were going in his career, and he said, "Oh, I'm working all the time." And I thought that was quite impressive for a bassoon player. And I said, "Playing bassoon?" And he said, No, with my rock band. I said, "Rock band? You're playing bassoon in a rock band?" "No." He said, "I'm singing and playing piano." And I said, "What material are you doing?" And he said, "I've written a lot of it." So he sang me a song called DNA, and it so stopped me in my tracks. It was absolutely amazing.
These shackled hands and feet won't hold me back. These blinded eyes will always see the truth. So I will spread my wings and let my spirit soar. You'll come begging me for more. When we walk together. When we love, our hearts beat as one. Let your life be filled with laughter. Let us dance till day is done. Whoa, 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 whoa.
And the last member of this unusual consort is Henrique Eisenman, who is an amazing young Brazilian pianist who's lived in the States for the last several years. Together, we converged and with little rehearsal, had this unusual experience of being able to put forth all the performances we did in an album that I think is one of the best the consort has done.
Now, people should know that when you do these summer solstice concerts, you don't exactly have an 8 p.m. concert start, do you?
The whole point is to experience what it's like at the very beginning of the day, the longest day of the year. The first summer solstice we did in the early 90s in the cathedral, they've always started at 4:30 a.m., which is when the birds begin to sing at this time of year.
And the sun rises by the time the concert is over?
It rises usually around 5:15. So it's an experience of this gradual crescendo of the light. The great drama of the sunrise is something that we rarely experience in a contemplative way. And it is, for me, the most powerful theater that you can imagine. It's a deep time for listening and for making music.
Are you able to sleep the night before? How do you wake up on time? Or are you just up around the clock? How does that work?
Well, it's easier here in the country because I keep farmers' hours more and I get up early. And don't stay up late. But in the cathedral, when we've performed there over the years, we rehearse the night before, and usually we don't get to bed until midnight or so. So we get a couple hours sleep and just get up and have some coffee and go at it. You could do that once a year.
Now, in the cathedral, you have a large audience. What was your audience in the barn?
Two rescue horses that my daughter brought home a few years ago. They failed on the racetrack, and luckily she found them before something worse happened to them. And they've been here, and they're great companions for us, and they tolerate whatever we play.
You mentioned that you didn't get a chance to do a lot of rehearsal with this current consort. You're known as a musician who transcends genre, be it jazz, classical, or earth music. How much of this current album is improvised?
For this concert, we did a series of fixed pieces, many different formats of music making, and we happened to have great new material from Henrique, some extraordinary compositions, 4 songs that Teresa sings, including the traditional theme for Juneteenth, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, which we've never performed before, and I never even imagined performing it. But she and Henrique do it in such an amazing way that it's absolutely reborn. And it happened that the concert last year was on Juneteenth. This year is the first official year that it's a national holiday after over 100 years.
She's such an extraordinary singer. She also does How Can I Keep From Singing on that album, which is a song I associate with Pete Seeger. And Pete does it great, but she really brings something special to it.
Well, it was Pete we learned it from, and I feel that she knocks it out of the park.
My life goes on in endless song above earth's lamentations. I hear the
sounds and echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing?
You're known for incorporating the sounds of the earth and animals into your music. On this album, you have a track that incorporates the song of a wood thrush. And as a bird watcher, I love that. Tell us about that track.
Several years ago, a wood thrush came to the forest near our cottage here in June around this time and sang this most beautiful song. I've been a great lover of the wood thrush songs for years since I've lived here. And each one, as you go through the forest, has a different song that they repeat again and again. And it's usually 4 phrases. This song I thought was quite musical in our, let's say, human sense of music. One morning, listening with it through the open window of the cottage, I went to the piano and found out that he's singing in C major. I of course, wanted to record him, and I put the tape recorder under his tree, hoping that I would get a good recording. Well, he became my C major wood thrush and really my muse. In the next 5 years, he returned every summer and singing that same song in C major. And when I finally got the recording I wanted, I began playing the phrases on my horn and only then realized that the 4 3-note phrases each outline a different chord, and the 4 chords together happen to be the exact same first chords of the prelude to Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier, which happens to be, of course, in C major. And as if that weren't enough, it also happens to be the first 4 chords of the prelude to the cello suite. So weaving those together, we made this piece that we call the Well-Tempered Wood Thrush.
I hope you don't mind if I say that you're now past your 80th year. Does making art get harder or easier as you get older?
Well, making music, and it's anybody's opinion whether it's art, one of the most rewarding things that I can imagine being able to do at any age, but it's more gratifying as the years go on. Every time I get to play, I have to keep in shape to blow. I have to keep in shape a little better than in earlier years. I'll tell you what really helps is getting to stay home. And I have to thank COVID for that, because I've been on the road since I was 21, never have had the time that I felt I wanted to have to go in depth in my writing and playing. And I've gotten that time in recent years, and it's just a tremendous gift.
And as you get older, do you have new things that you want to express with your music, or is it about getting better at saying what you want to express?
Well, the ideas still run rampant, half a dozen a day. Always more. It's as if life expands. The world is such a smorgasbord of music, and we've gotten to visit a good number of places, and I have backlogs of things that I've wanted to explore in more depth and incorporate into the consort. It's a great time of abundance.
What's the most important thing you know about making music?
That anybody can do it. I don't believe in talent. I believe some people have a proclivity maybe toward different things, but everyone has an impulse toward expression, and if they're given half a chance, can do it in a musical way. It's just that we get put in boxes too early on. We maybe decide that whether we have this talent or something, or think that we have to take lessons, whatever. And I like to do events where everybody can make sounds freely together, even in the dark, especially in the dark, and find how easy it is. And you don't have to worry about whether it's art or not, or even call it music. I call it sound play. But I think that the expression, I feel, in whatever form, is the chief reward of human life. It's giving out in some way of your own expression, and that we rob ourselves of one of the great fulfillments when we don't get a chance to do this.
Oh, that pure acceptance really has put a little chill in my spine. That's very beautiful. How can people get your new album, Paul, Concert in the Barn?
Probably the easiest way is on our website. It's paulwinter.com.
Great. Thanks, Paul.
You're very welcome, and thank you, Jack.
I've been speaking with the great musician Paul Winter, whose new album is called Concert in the Barn by the Paul Winter Consort. This is Jack Shalom for Arts Express with host Prairie Miller.
When tyrants tremble, sick with fear, and they hear their death knell ringing, when friends both far and near, how can I keep from singing in prison cell and dungeon vile? Our thoughts to them go winging when friends by shame are undefiled. Tell me, how can I keep from singing? No, no, no storm's gonna shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. I know love is Lord of heaven and earth. Tell me, how can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? Tell me, how can we keep from singing?
And that's all we have time for today on Arts Express, Expression in the Arts. And if you'd like to express yourself too, you can write to us at theradiogoddess@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Prairie Miller leaving the station.